Hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. If you're new to the podcast, check out my interview with Mike Michalowicz. It's episode number 2. If you want to hear about each chapter in the Profit First book, go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why and how. On the Profit Answer Man, we learn money mastery without all the complicated accounting mumbo-jumbo using a simple system. Your accountant is busy documenting your transactions and creating a rearview mirror of what happened. My guess is you don't even look at the reports they sent you. If you're like most business owners, you struggle with this, and it's not your fault. We aren't taught money in school, and accountants aren't taught how to be profitable. The Profit First system created by Mike Michalowicz works, and he certified me to help you implement the system in your business. Remember, the new equation is sales minus profit equals expenses. Let's face it, without cash flow, you can't pay your employees, buy needed materials, or pay your mortgage and support your family. I help you to do that and more, so you can focus on the parts of the business you love and receive the rewards for your labor and investment into your business. The stronger you are as a business owner, the more jobs you create, the better we are as a country. Small business owners are the backbone of America, and for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. Just remember, more revenue does not equal more profit. That's why we focus on the bottom line. Today, my friend Jeremy Segal, a serial entrepreneur, joins us to share his journey. I wanted Jeremy to come on because he understands the business of running business. He knows the importance of money and finances. He's studied it and he's implemented it at many levels. And he knows how to turn a profit, and he can make sure to help you to do that too. He has a lot of different projects, including creating Bitcoin mining farms and importing specialty sports cars from Japan. Jeremy is a master at testing markets, finding new opportunities without spending a lot of money. He's been doing this since he was a little kid. Now he does what he loves and he focuses on that. He gets to pick and choose how he lives life. For his latest project, Jeremy Segal has grown over 200,000 social media followers and often speaks on topics related to community building. Jeremy is host of the podcast Why Influence, as well as the YouTube channel, where he interviews influencers on a wide range of platforms, many who have more than 1 million followers and subscribers. Jeremy hosts a weekly virtual meetup via Zoom where influencers and aspiring influencers get the opportunity to network and learn from each other, including guest speakers. By the way, this is free. If you want to grow your social media presence, check it out. Also, Jeremy was on my other podcast, Richer Soul. It was titled The Entrepreneurial Journey. It's episode number 203. Link in the show notes. Let's meet our guest. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Jeremy Segal. It's great to have you join us today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rocky. I'm excited to be here.
Can you share a little bit about what you are currently working on with the audience?
Sure. So I'm an entrepreneur, so I go in and out of different business ventures based on how things are going and where the market's going. But my most recent passions are I have a podcast. I've been doing it for about 2 years. Have got about 80 interviews now, where I interview full-time social media influencers, and I deep dive into why they're sharing and how they overcame their barriers to sharing bigger. Something I always questioned for myself, and so I thought, why not surround myself with people who are sharing in big ways to help me overcome my barriers, and then I'll ask them questions and how they overcame their barriers to help lift me up. So it's sort of been a self-development project for me. And with that, it was sort of quiet. You could see the listeners going up, but I didn't really hear much. Maybe Apple iTunes reviews every once in a while. But then I started a meetup. For influencers who are either starting out or full time, and we've been doing that pretty consistently now. And we've got a good consistent base that shows up every week for anybody who wants to grow their influence. It applies well to businesses, but for the most part, most people are there to build their own personal brand and personal presence. And that's really important as well as for business owners. And then the Association of Influencers and Thought Leaders was sort of born out of that, which is, a community of influencers that wanted something more. And there's no professional association that existed for full-time influencers and thought leaders, maybe for pockets of skills related to that. But that's sort of my world and what's going on there.
And the reality is people buy from people. So when you can become that different person that everyone looks up to as the expert or in that particular field, then you automatically get a premium as a business owner, and you're the person that everybody wants to go to. So for whatever type of business you're in, every one of those industries has influencers, and those influencers usually have the ability to charge premium prices and to also have a wonderful marketing funnel that helps to support them. And I'm sure you've seen that with many of the guests you've had.
Yeah, of course. And, it's a way for you as a business owner to be giving value for free, and all you're doing is building yourself up as a credible person in your space that then leads to leads. So you're basically giving and receiving, but you're basically you're receiving for giving. And that's just a great model to have going.
And this is probably a lot less expensive than paying for some of those Facebook ads and some of the other things that are out there.
Yeah, a little slower, but relationship marketing, builds long-term relationships for sure.
Very true. Now, you have had a long entrepreneurial journey. We're not going to dig into all those parts, but there's certain parts of your journey that I find very interesting. So I want to kind of take a step back. You chose to become an accountant. Why did you choose to follow that path as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, great question. My father is actually an entrepreneur, and he's an engineer, and I saw him build a company that eventually had an exit, and he actually, in the early days needed more capital than expected for the R&D and the development of the product, so he sort of lost a lot of his ownership. So I learned from sort of as a bystander by some of the mistakes that he's made as an entrepreneur. But as well as that, I always, had exposure to just different roles within his company. And I always looked up to the CFO because I felt like, who has the skill set that is most necessary to be a successful entrepreneur, like to make sure that you have the highest risk of being successful. And I was like, okay, well, the CFO is that skill set from my perspective as a kid. So then I was like, decided, okay, let me be laser focused. I know what I want to do. I want to be a CFO of a company. So to get there, I'll be an accountant. And that's why I chose an accounting degree.
It's funny because most business owners and the numbers in the CFO position are like oil and vinegar. Like they don't go into business to be an accountant, right? And they're not accountants usually. And so this is, I think, a major struggle for many, many business owners. Since you spent time in accounting and you came in from an entrepreneurial background, did the people around you who were studying have the same mindsets and viewpoints that you did?
So I actually did my bachelor's in accounting and finance, so I got a little bit of exposure to both those worlds. And accounting is generally in school a pretty high level thinking. It's like if you're working at a public company, you get the one small sliver of some big thing. You only get to see that small sliver. Accounting is sort of in that direction because it's focused on, to be successful in that space as far as how they teach it. You want to, you want to become a CPA. You want to take the CPA exam, which is for public accounting. And then you want to get a Big Four accounting job at one of the big accounting firms. Like that's just what they taught was being prestigious. And with that, you don't learn bookkeeping. Like I never learned bookkeeping in school, which is so important for accounting to even understand like the what underlies all the accounting you're looking at. So yeah, I would say there's pockets of people, but for the most part, in general, when I was in school, accounting students were just sort of taught and nurtured to be sort of a niche within like a larger accounting system, as opposed to like a smaller business overarching everything, understanding the whole picture kind of a standpoint.
And that's what I see, that accountants are great at what they do, but they speak a very different language than entrepreneurs. And they've just got a very different outlook. And if you're working for a large company and you need to make sure that your figures are accurate, you're phenomenal at that. But for a small business owner and an entrepreneur, they want to know, where is my money? Can I make this next decision? Is it going to be profitable? Does this make sense? And I don't know that that's really taught to them.
Yeah, I definitely saw that gap, and I did a finance along with it because I was passionate about just that whole ecosystem. And finance had some of that, but not quite enough from my standpoint too, because it's a lot more about the markets and how the stock market works. And it's not really to a small business or looking at books or accounting and how the finance works in that ecosystem. So both of those degrees sort of lacked what I felt was necessary as a smaller entrepreneur and a small mid-sized business and a capable kind of person.
And so you actually followed that path, right? You went to work for the Big Four, didn't you?
Yeah, I then got my master's in management information systems because I felt like accounting and systems was the future of accounting, which it's, still moving that path, and so it seems true. Then I started at a Big Four accounting firm. I got a nice, prestigious job out of school, which is what they told us we should get. And I enjoyed the job. I mean, I enjoyed the people, the culture. The main thing is like I understood, the entrepreneur world, at least to some degree. And it just wasn't really taking me down the path that I thought was necessary to be a successful entrepreneur, which was sort of the goal from the beginning. Like, I want to be a CFO of a company because I want to be an entrepreneur. And getting this experience at the Big Four accounting firm, although great, and it's great to see how the big public companies work, it wasn't really driving me in the right direction. So that's when I sort of took a path down a notch and started. I don't know if you want me to keep going. Or...
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, then I started. I got a job at a small consulting company. As they had 5 people. It was very niche, but they're all top-notch people. So I was sort of operating in a pretty awesome position for exposure. And so we were implementing some cloud accounting softwares called Intact. You may have heard of it, or NetSuite. And so those are like the cutting edge cloud accounting softwares at the time. And I was helping people that outgrew QuickBooks. Like, they pushed QuickBooks to the max in the capability. And now they're like, what do I do now? Like, it's not really suitable for my business. We'll be like, okay, how's it structured right now? Where do we need to go? And we'll mold it into this new cloud system that is way more optimized. And so I did that for a little while, which got me exposure to a bunch of small business CFOs. I was telling them how to run their accounting software, after getting enough knowledge there. So that really got me ramped up with the real world understanding of accounting from the perspective that I was aiming for.
When you were dealing with those small business CFOs, what were the struggles that they were facing generally?
Like the limitations of the software solutions. For example, like you may have one client that you create hundreds of invoices for per day to run like a ticketing system, but then you need to create a consolidated invoice to give that to the customer. So there's like specific use cases where QuickBooks was not able to fill that gap in those capabilities. And it was enough of a struggle that maybe manual processes were now coming into play. And then there's typos and mistakes and things falling through the cracks because of that. So you get to a certain point where you just are pushing the limits and you're sort of working around in all these different directions. You have to choose at some point to change the software you're using.
And I think that's one of the biggest problems, regardless of what software system you're using, is if you're not capturing all the information and things get lost through the cracks, that's just literally money leaking out of your business. And so you've got to make sure that you've got good systems in place to appropriately bill your clients, or they're essentially getting a deal and you're losing money that you don't even know where it is because it disappeared somewhere that's untraceable.
Yeah, we saw a lot of that. And like another example that comes up is, this was 10 years ago now, roughly, but like there was one client that was saving 6 digits a year just in the cost of printing invoices. So the cost of paper and ink for the invoices that they would print for their clients, they would save that much just by going digital. So there's a lot of just little nuances, but it adds up to a ton of savings when you look at these companies.
And it does. People don't realize the cost of invoicing. The cost, if you're a small company with 10 invoices, it's not a big deal. But it is not hard to spend $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 to send out invoices. And if you send out 1,000 invoices and it's $3 or $4 or $5, that's a lot of money going out your door. And it's an area that you can figure out how to optimize. And I think that's a big part of it. The CFO should be optimizing the finances in every part of your company. And in order for that to happen, they need clarity on the entire company. And they also need the depth to go deep down, which I don't think many of them do. Many of them stay up in the clouds. They don't go down into the weeds to see what's truly going on.
Yeah, that's definitely a common trend. And sometimes it's not necessarily their fault. It might be that they've got so many other things that they're balancing on their plate that they don't have that flexibility to take that step back and look at the bigger picture. That's a common theme as well.
And most companies, even big companies, don't have people whose sole job it is to look into the weeds, do they? And figure out where the leaks are in the business and where the spending is going.
Yeah, not to my knowledge. I mean, I know that there's consultants that do that, or maybe temp hires potentially. But it's really the responsibility of an ongoing role, from my experience, from what I've seen. And it's juggling that on top of doing the day to day. So sort of a above and beyond responsibility.
So after that, you took the next step and you became a CFO in a small business, right? How did that go?
Yeah, that's what I was laser focused, aiming towards from a young age. Was like, I want to be a CFO of a company, and then I want to be an entrepreneur. So I've sort of held myself back from becoming an entrepreneur from some opportunities that have arisen because my mental block was there because I wanted to be a CFO. But yeah, when I was actually 25 years old when I got the offer to be a CFO of a medical practice. They had 130 employees, and I was in charge of the accounting, finance, HR, marketing, and IT departments with direct reports in each of those. So it was quite a jump from consulting and not really managing people, but it was definitely great exposure, especially for the age, to sort of jump into a business. And then I loved getting into the weeds, and so I was just like, how can I save money here? Like, how can I figure this out? There was a full-time bookkeeper with a bookkeeper assistant. So the books, as an ongoing progress, was already in the works. And she's a stable employee that's been there for 25 years. So she understood. She'd only ask me questions of which account certain transactions would hit on occasion. But for the most part, the books were mostly handled. So I was able to sort of get that higher level, take a step back, let's look at the organization and see just overall from the business side, what kind of recommendations I could make by just coming in there with a fresh mind.
And were you able to save them any money?
Yeah, for sure. I actually, I put together this master plan and was like, here's all of the things I think you should be doing. Here's where I think you should be cutting costs. Here's some of the changes I think you could be doing. And then here's a whole growth strategy too, as a separate part, marketing and all that. So I gave them this whole master plan. I pitched it at a board of directors meeting. They had 5 partners, all doctors. So none of them were business professionals. And at the end of the meeting, they actually said this was the best meeting they've ever had since they've been in business, from me pitching that. And, it was a lot of savings, and a hard, actionable items. And I had a whole plan for how to implement it. So then I started implementing the plan, and I would do one thing, and then one of the doctors would call and say, "Hey, can you put a hold on this item?" And another doctor would call me and be like, "Hey, what's the status of this?" And I'll be like, "Well, this other doctor said to put a hold on it, so now there's no progress being made on it." And he's like, "Well, I didn't agree to that." And it's like, "Well, you guys got to communicate." So there's the different industries have different pain points, and I think that anyone that has worked in the healthcare industry with multiple partners involved in a business has probably had exposure to some of that. So the implementation part, I wanted it to be done today. I'm a young aspirational person, just let's get this done. But it was just a little bit painful to get it done. So I was there for a while. I implemented a lot of it, and then I actually was okay, I don't want to be not being able to execute on this. It's sort of painful to be making it happen. So I'm going to leave you guys with a plan. I'll transition out very smoothly, and I'll replace myself, and you guys are now set. And then I sort of came in as an interim CFO in that instance. And then that's when I started my first business after that. But I know you wanted me to touch on one of the examples of the savings that I found. So here I am as a new CFO, young guy, gets this big office, and I'm just looking at transactions. I'm looking at invoices. I'm just skimming through, and I'm seeing that we're spending all this money with this IT company. I think don't quote me, I think we're spending around $80,000 a month, something like that, to this IT company. So that's, almost $1 million a year. That's $900,000 a year. So I contact the IT company, and granted, I have my master's in management information systems. I built my first computer when I was 8 years old. So I've been around computers my entire life. I understand IT. So all I did is ask them, "Hey, can you just tell me what this invoice is for?" All I want is an itemized breakout. Just send me an itemized invoice next month. That's all I'm asking. I gave no pressure of anything. Didn't say it was overpriced because I didn't even know what it was for. Then maybe a month or two goes by, mostly radio silent. Then they finally got to me with an itemized invoice, and the invoice dropped to $40,000 a month with an itemized breakout. So just right from there, that was $400,000, almost $500,000 in hard savings right there, just from a simple phone call asking for clarity in what a charge is for.
And I think, some of the people listening might go, my whole business is $800,000 or $1 million a year. There's no way I can save that. But the principle still applies. You guys are using these software systems, especially software as a service. If you start asking your employees, do we need this? Do we need this tier? Do we need this level? Even if you're spending $1,000 a month and you can drop it to $500 a month, that $500 goes straight to your pocket. Right? It is profit, and actual hard cash profit is not easy to come by in a business. So getting someone in your company, because as you said, the business owner didn't make these phone calls. You did, right? Put somebody in charge to call all your vendors and go, "Hey, what are we spending? And is there a better way to do this?" And you literally, most businesses can cut 10% on spending right off the top by just asking a couple of questions. And so I think it's just important for people to realize there are massive leaks in businesses of all sizes, and you definitely need to watch. And we didn't even go through your backstory. I don't know, how many companies or business ventures have you done since you were a kid?
It depends on when I gave myself permission to identify as an entrepreneur, I think. But my grandma says I was selling erasers for a nickel in kindergarten. In middle school, I was selling Pokemon cards, and I was selling wheat pennies for $1. I would sell a random wheat penny on eBay for a penny plus $1 shipping. So I'd make 70 cents on a penny. So I just always been doing something.
You've always been doing something. And I just want to make that clear that the big reason I wanted you on is because you're an entrepreneur who also understands the finances. And that is just a rarity. And you can talk from both sides of that. So then, is that when you went into the business brokering?
No. So right after the CFO, that's when I was like, I actually gave myself permission to be an entrepreneur. I was like, I made it as like my dream job. I got it. I killed it in the dream job. I did a great job. I was proud of myself. And now it's time just to be an entrepreneur. Let's start something that I actually like commit to and treat as a real business. I had a couple things that I've done before that, like, I won't go into it, but that could have been considered real businesses. But this is when I did that. So one of my buddies, he bought a drone, like a RC helicopter with a quadcopter. And at the time, it was a pretty new technology. A company called DJI had just released their Phantom original. And I was like, man, this is going to be a huge industry. Let's just start experimenting with it. So I feel like one thing I pride myself with is being able to see trends and then experimenting with low cost ways to test the market. So for this market, what we did is we bought some propellers from China. It was just like, that's something that will break on the drone. And then we sold them on eBay. No brand, no website, literally just propellers from Alibaba, put them on eBay. We sold $2,000 of propellers in the first week when putting that up. So then we're like, okay, there's like something here. Let's do something else. So then we built a brand, built a website. What else breaks on these things? Well, they need like these repair parts. All right, well, what are people upgrading on them? Well, they need FPV kits and you need these LCD monitors so they can watch what's on the GoPro live on a little LCD screen. Nowadays, you use your phone, but back then you didn't. So we sold these kits online, and the business is doing great. And we started with the clean books from the beginning because I knew this is just what I was trying to do. So exactly 2 years later, that's what most businesses need for financials to be put up for sale. Exactly 2 years later, I put it up for sale, and within 30 days, we sold the business. So I've gone as quickly as possible through the entire life cycle of business. And that was when I got exposure to business brokering, what that is about. I wanted to learn more about that, so I actually signed up and paid for myself to get the certification that business brokers get, which is called the CBI, the Certified Business Intermediary, which is not required, but it's just like the best practices for selling small businesses. And I was really just doing it for education for myself, for selling my businesses at the time when I was doing that.
And so this is kind of people don't realize, and I think what you did was brilliant. The iPhone comes out and everyone goes, how am I going to compete with the iPhone? But the iPhone comes out and you go, hey, those people need cases. Those people need headsets. Those people need power cords. And you tap into $1 billion market with your own cases before everyone else. You beat the market and you make a killing in that, and it's watching trends and seeing where opportunities are. And then, as you said, once you build it up, get out and go find the next trend because you truly are the serial entrepreneur. So a lot of business owners, I tell business owners, you should always be sale ready. And it's not that you're ever going to sell your business. A business that is sell ready means that it is well run financially, because usually that is the number one thing that drives value. So as you look at a business and what brings it more value, what are some of the underlying factors that you're looking at?
I think clean books is a big one. There's so many different aspects of what that.
So what does that lay? What do clean books mean?
Yeah. It would be like making sure that you have the right chart of accounts set up, that you are sending the accounts to the transactions to the right account, that the books are reconciled appropriately, like just the standard stuff. But then, if you're paying for your students' college out of it, or you're paying for your own car or travel, make sure that that's tracked well so that you can you can pull that stuff out. Because when you put a business up for sale, a small business is generally sold based on the owner's benefit, and that's not what you're recording on your taxes. That's not what your P&L says. Owner's benefit is when you add back transactions into the business to find out what it is that you're getting as a benefit as an owner. So if you're paying for your own car, so you're sort of molding it in with other stuff, you may not be able to get that transaction added in appropriately when you're getting to the point of trying to sell the business. So having it tracked appropriately means that you can then say, okay, well, this car has been paid for me. I can clearly show that on the books. So I'm going to add that as an owner's benefit. And then now the business had this much higher income as a result. And then if your multiple is 3 or 5x, well, now you just 3 or 5x how much you just spent on that car because you had clean books tracking that well. So I think that having a way to backtrack your systems is really important.
I think that's one of the brilliant things about the Profit First system is that we have an owner's pay account. And what people don't understand is the owner's pay account not only includes their actual pay, but that's where we stuff all of those things.
Oh, that's great.
And so you get total clarity. Hey, this is truly all the benefits I took from the company, my salary, my car, my cell phone, the corporate retreat that we went on every year. All of that stuff shows up in owner's pay, and it makes it so clean, not only for someone who's going to buy your business, but let's say that you go to the bank and you want to borrow money. Well, you can go to the bank and say, look, these are all my benefits. If I need to, I don't have to take the corporate retreat next year. I don't have to do these things. This is all essentially fat in the business that I can cut without hurting the business at all because it's not doing anything to the business itself. And so it makes you more lendable as well. And that's why I think these things are important.
That's huge. Yeah, it's lending huge. Is another big issue for small businesses because you're incentivized to show as small income as you can on the tax return. So having that owner benefit account would be a great benefit for sure.
And so one of the things is, I think for the small business owner that I've heard you say is that they need clarity on their visions and goals. And I think more often than not, they are so busy in the business that they don't think about the bigger picture. What have you found?
Yeah. Well, I think if you have any plans of selling your business in the next couple of years, you should be focused on trying to get out of the business. So if you're in the weeds, first of all, you don't need to be in the weeds of the books or migrate your efforts to somewhere where you could be doing something else. So like you're an expert at operating the business. So the biggest value you can give to your business is to making it so it can run without you. And putting effort into that and getting clarity on the path that's necessary to get there will drastically increase the value of your exit. Because so many people I've seen and talked to say, well, my business is worth this much, like it should be worth so much. And it's like, well, what happens when you're not there? And it's like, well, all the clients sort of like working with me, but I'm willing to help with the transfer of the business and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, if you knew 5 years from now you're going to get out of the business, start today and like start upskilling someone to replace your responsibilities or hire a team or outsource those responsibilities because having basically goals and clarity on those goals help you get those stepping stones that are necessary to get you to where you're trying to go. And the sooner you know where you're trying to go and you're making those intentional steps, the better. Really with anything in life, but definitely true for business.
And so what I tell business owners is, again, you don't need to be selling your business. But if you can get out of your business and you're not in the grind, you start to love your business again. And it's really wonderful when you can run a business and spend 10, 15 hours a week working and reap the benefits of that business and have the freedom to do what you want. Because that's why you went into business. So you could have freedom to live the life on your terms. And if you can get out of your business and work on your business, you start to love your business again if it's become a grind. And so, again, this is why sale ready isn't that you're selling. Sale ready means you're running your business in such a way that it's optimized. And I think that's what I look at. And should you want to sell your business, then you're ready to roll. You don't have to think about it. You're like, hey, let's go. And if you need to borrow money, same thing. Hey, let's go. We have it and we can prove it.
Yeah, emergencies happen all the time. Fires happen all the time. Like if you ran your business like it's sale ready, like you're talking about, like, if you need to get out at any point, you can get out. Whereas if you weren't prepared, then oftentimes you really want 2 to 3 years of really cleanly run business that operates without you. And if you're not close to that situation and having that 2 or 3 years of history of being in that situation, then you're not going to get the most out of your business when you walk away from it.
So true. If people would like to check out your podcast, learn a little bit more about what you do, what's the best way for them to find you?
Yeah, my podcast it's mostly a self-development project because I did these businesses, but I was always behind the scenes. And from one of my recent businesses, I grew 200,000 social followers for it, but never made an appearance in any capacity. So I was trying to overcome my barriers to being able to step up as like a face of a business for future ventures I'm doing. Because as you can see with what Rocky's doing, how valuable it is to have that presence. So I'd love for you to tune into some of the episodes, and if you're interested, you can more than welcome to join the meetup. But it's really just Why Influence, WHYinfluence.com. It's at WhyInfluence on most social medias. It's just WHY Influence. And send me a PM, email, connect with me on any social media. Happy to help any way I can.
And I've been to those, and they are very enjoyable. So I also encourage you to check them out. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jeremy.
No problem. Yeah, thanks, Rocky, for having me.
Did you hear how that one phone call saved the business over $400,000? What phone call do you need to make? Every business owner needs to understand the business of business or have a partner who does and is willing to make those calls. All of Jeremy's links are in the show notes. Check them out. And remember, he was on my other podcast. The link is in the show notes as well. Remember, you don't need more resources. You need to be more resourceful. We focus on the bottom line. If you want a done-for-you service, you can have me as your Chief Profitability Officer because you have your zone of genius and want to spend your time doing what you love. I only work with a handful of clients, so they get my full attention. I work with business owners who have or are growing to $500,000 to $5 million in revenue. You can use the scheduling link in the show notes to get on my calendar for a good fit conversation to see if I'm the right person to support you and how I can help you. If you want to learn about living the life of your dreams, check out my other podcast, Richer Soul. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity. Profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have an abundant and profitable week.